Seedance 2.5 just dropped. And I wanted to see if it actually lives up to the hype. So to put it to the test, I made it compete with Gemini Omni and Kling 3 on the exact same 5 prompts to see if it can surpass some of the best models. And in this video, I'll show you what each one does well and where they fall apart, so you'll know exactly which model to reach for depending on what you're making. So the first thing I want out of all 3 is a boxing knockout that looks like it came off a live TV feed. Everything in this video runs inside Higgsfield, which is the one platform that gives you all 3 of these models in the same place. So if you want to follow along, I've left a link to it in the description below. Once you log in, everything's laid out along the top navigation bar. And to access the video tools, simply click on Create Video to enter the workspace. From the model selector, I'll start with Seedance 2.5, and I'll set the duration to 30 seconds, the aspect ratio to 16:9, the highest quality tier it offers. Every model gets those exact settings and the same prompt, so the difference only comes down to what each model can do. Some models don't go up to 30 seconds, so we'll set them to their max to make everything fair. I'm also keeping all 3 text only with no reference image, since a reference would favor whichever one handles them best, and then I'd be testing that instead of the prompt. Then I'll paste in the prompt, which asks for the raw live feed of a televised boxing match with 3 different camera angles and hard cuts. And you can find this exact prompt along with the whole workflow in the description below, totally free, so you can follow along in real time. Seedance gives me the full 30 seconds I asked for. The edit is the part it gets right, because it cuts between the 3 camera positions the way a broadcast director would, and both replays come back in slow motion from the 2 angles I named, which is honestly the part I expected to fail. That matters because these models are built to make things look cinematic, and this prompt asks for the opposite, a live feed that nobody staged or designed. It's not perfect though. The lettering on the trunks and the ringside boards comes out warped, even though I asked for no readable text on anything, and the jaw deforms in the second replay. The audio is exactly right, with no music and no commentary, just a crowd bed with the referee's count coming through clearly over it. Overall, this is very good, and it sets the bar high. Now I'll switch the model over to Gemini Omni, leaving the exact same prompt and set it to 10 seconds, which is the highest it goes. So if you want longer videos, Seedance 2.5 already has this 1 beat in duration. It can still run the prompt, but it will have to fit everything into 10 seconds, and I won't reword anything because how each model handles that structure is one of the clearest differences between them.
Left hand, get him! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
What comes back is the 6-shot edit compressed into roughly 3, and it does keep the order right. The knockdown still leads into a replay and then the celebration, and the skin and sweat detail on the boxers is very realistic, which makes it look like an actual broadcast. But it breaks the one rule I was strictest about, since I asked for a picture with no on-screen text and no station items, and it adds a caption and makes up sponsor marks along the apron. And the audio does the same thing with an excited shouting voice that edges into commentary. It also glitches out in some areas, and the slow motion punches fall flat compared to Seedance, which had real weight to each movement. Then I'll run the same prompt again on Kling 3.0, which stops at 15 seconds. The knockdown physics here are the best I got out of any of them. The head and the limbs actually bounce and settle instead of sliding into position, and that's the hardest part of a shot like this to fake. It also adds some text, which unlike Gemini isn't always readable. It doesn't really edit though. I get 1 cut and no replays at all, so the 6-shot structure is gone, and there's no referee count in the audio either. And the biggest thing missing is the slow motion replay. So out of all 3, this one was the worst at following the prompt. So the closest thing to a real broadcast came from the only model that got the full 30 seconds to build one. This one tested how these models follow a coherent order to make a full scene. But the next thing I want to test out is how they perform when we try to control the speed, because this is something AI video models tend to ignore. So I want to make a scene where everything moves in slow motion except just one character who's still in normal speed. Back in the generation's workspace, I'll start with Kling 3.0 this time, set to its 15-second max, with every other setting the same as before, 16:9, the highest quality tier, and the audio on. Then I'll paste in the second prompt, which asks for a dragon attacking a medieval village at dusk, shot in first person, with a sword standing in the dirt. Everything around the main character has to move in slow motion while they move normally, and instead of a usual third-person perspective, this is also a POV video, so the whole prompt is very challenging. And honestly, Kling's result isn't great. It executes the slow motion well enough, but the camera is way too low, and it fades in and out of a POV shot. One thing that looks great are all the materials. The leather and the steel all look very realistic. It also gets basically the whole scene in, including the dragon hovering over the gatehouse with its flame column, and the only thing missing is the falling feathers. The fire is a bit puffy, and the ox floats slightly above the ground, and the audio gives me the crackle and the proper metallic ring on the sword, though the dragon only gets a low muffled rumble instead of a full roar. Overall, Kling struggled with this one. Then Gemini Omni down to its 10-second max. And this is the first time a model fails a test outright, because everything in the shot runs at the same slow speed, including me, so instead of one person moving normally through a world that's in slow motion, everything just feels normal. The POV angle is right this time, and it holds all the way through, but the shot gets cut off. The dragon isn't in the scene at all, and I never fully pulled the sword out, so the model couldn't fit everything in just 10 seconds. To its credit, the knight, the archer, and the burning cottage are all there. The sword pickup is staged correctly with my boots and sleeves coming into frame, and the fire glow on the wet mud is genuinely good, but it failed on every single test I had set up with this prompt. So on this one, Gemini is clearly the weakest. Then the same prompt on Seedance 2.5 back up to the full 30 seconds. This one is the best, and it's not close. It's the only one that got the timing fully correct. Everything is frozen, while our character is moving normally through the scene. The camera angle is exactly right. Every single element, including the feathers, is present, and it also has the most cinematic visuals for a scene like this. The smoke is the weak part though, it has that CGI look to it, and the feathers falling through the frame can look unnatural at times. The audio is layered properly too, with every single element feeling real. Overall, this is a strong result, and it holds the effect for the full 30 seconds. So the hardest instruction in the whole test came out right on Seedance and Kling and fell completely flat on Gemini. Now we can take this even further and drop the speed down to 0, because holding a scene completely frozen is where these models start moving things on their own. So I want the whole scene to be frozen, with the items moving only when someone interacts with them. Back in the workspace, I'll start with Gemini Omni this time, at its 10-second max, with everything else the same as before. Then I'll paste in the third prompt, which asks for a masked plague procession in a town square at dusk, with every person, flame and spark, stopped mid-movement. The only thing allowed to move is the main character, and whatever he interacts with, it's a POV shot again, so everything will be easy to spot. Gemini breaks the freeze almost straight away. The masked marchers keep walking and the fire breather is still moving, so the one thing the whole shot is built on is gone. It also cuts partway through, which the prompt specifically ruled out, and the hooded figures carrying candles never show up at all. What it does get right is the mask itself. The leather is realistic with visible buckles. So Gemini failed this test completely. Then the same prompt on Seedance 2.5 at the full 30 seconds. The difference should be clear. This is what the previous shot was supposed to look like. Everything is completely frozen. The camera angle is right and our character is moving through the whole scene with every element showing up. Overall, Seedance owns this one, then Kling 3.0 at its 15-second max. Kling breaks the freeze as well, the crows fly, the fire flickers, and the crowd keeps advancing. The bigger problem is that the 15 seconds run out before the hand finishes lifting the mask, so the one moment everything was leading to never happens. The architecture is genuinely good. The church spire and the cobbles hold up, and it does get the hooded candle carriers, the crows, and the fallen woman into the scene. But the fire jets look like static columns rather than flame. Every masked face is the same, and the audio is generic ambience with no breathing, no heartbeat, and no ending. So Kling struggles with this one. Then I want to push the same idea harder, so I'll paste in the fourth prompt, which asks for a Roman arena stopped mid-fight with a camera that glides low and wide through the frozen fighters before settling into a handheld walk. I'll start with Kling. And this time, it holds the freeze completely. Everything stays suspended with no drift at all, and the camera does exactly what I asked for. The low wide glide settling into a real handheld step. The sword comes out of the sand with real weight behind it, and the sand, the fur, and the bronze are all very realistic. It does miss the lions, and it skips the moment where the blade gets inspected against the sun. So even though it's the same concept, Kling handles this one far better than the last. Then Seedance at the full 30 seconds again. The sand, the sun, and the shadows are all strong, and everything in the arena reads as genuinely stopped rather than slowed down, and it handles the glide into the handheld walk cleanly with real weight when the sword comes out. Another strong result, and it holds for the full 30 seconds. Then Gemini at 10 seconds again. And this one falls apart completely. The freeze is dropped immediately, everything looks unnatural and fake, and the camera movement is completely different to what I asked. The animals especially are the weak part. The tiger fur distorts and the elephant skin looks plastic, though the sound of the sword coming out of the sand is nice. So Gemini gets the detail right and loses the freeze both times. So the model that couldn't hold the freeze in the first shot is the one that held it perfectly in the second. Now we can push it to the hardest test in the whole set, a normal scene with dialogue and realistic interactions. So for this last one, I want an everyday scene of a family getting ready in the morning, which is exactly what makes it so hard to recreate. A scene like this is one we're used to seeing a lot, so if it looks even slightly unnatural, it will immediately become noticeable. I'll start with Seedance 2.5 this time, back at the full 30 seconds with everything else the same. Then I'll paste in the fifth prompt, which asks for a Japanese father helping his young daughter get ready to leave, shot POV in one unbroken take with 7 lines of spoken dialogue. No cuts are allowed anywhere. His face and body can never appear, not even in a reflection, and the dialogue has to actually come out spoken, so it's obvious the moment a model skips one of them.
ソファーの下じゃない？あった。これもお願い。はい。
Seedance gets every part of it. It's a true 30-second single take. The POV holds the whole way through and it runs the full sequence. The hands hold up through all of it, which is the hardest thing in the whole shot, because they're handling real objects for 30 seconds straight and the fingers never come out wrong. All 7 lines of Japanese come out spoken as well, with all the little sound effects around the apartment and no music. The only thing it got wrong is when he helps her daughter put on her sock, she's still missing the other one, but when she gets up, it appears. But honestly, this is small, and compared to what it gets right, little elements like this can be overlooked. Then let's test out Kling 3.0 at its 15-second max. And Kling breaks the one rule the whole prompt is built on, because the camera stops being POV a few seconds in and starts trailing the father from behind, so his head, back and body are all on screen. It's one continuous take with smooth movement, and the kitchen materials and the morning light look great, with the child and the dog both convincing. But it drops almost everything. There's no dialogue, the father doesn't help his daughter get ready, and they just walk to the door. So Kling looks good overall, but it doesn't follow the prompt at all. Then Gemini Omni, and this one never gave me a video at all. I ran it several times and it kept failing without giving me anything back, sometimes flagged by its own content moderation and sometimes just failing with no reason attached. So unfortunately, we can't see what it would make for this one, but we already have enough data to go off. So the most normal looking prompt in this set is the only one a model couldn't run at all. Now that all 5 prompts have run on all 3, I can give you the straight answer on which one to actually use. And the answer changes depending on what you're making, so I'll take them one at a time, starting with the one that struggled the most. Gemini Omni is the one I'd use the least, and the 10-second limit is a big part of why, because any prompt with more than a couple of things happening in it gets cut down to a third of the time it needed. The fine detail is where it's actually strong. The leather and the buckles on the mask were the best of the 3. The skin and sweat on the boxers looked like a real broadcast, and it was the only model that included the moment where the sword gets raised and inspected against the sun. What it can't do is hold a rule for the length of a shot. It broke the freeze in both frozen scenes. It added text, and it wouldn't generate the family scene at all. So use Gemini for a short shot where you want one good looking moment and stay away from it when the prompt has a rule that needs to hold all the way through. Then there's Kling 3.0, which has the opposite problem because it can create good looking visuals, but it follows instructions the worst. It makes the crowd move. The family sequence is completely ignored, and it never added replays in the boxing match. It also kept running out of time in the middle of an action, so the mask never got lifted and the sword pull never finished. So Kling is the one to reach for when your shot is a single continuous action and you care most about how it looks, and the one to avoid when the prompt has an edit, spoken lines, or a list of things that all have to happen, which leaves Seedance 2.5, and it's the only one that gave me what I asked for on all 5. It got the full 30 seconds every time, it held the broadcast edit together and read 2 speeds inside one shot. It gave me the strongest freeze in the whole set, and it's the only model that actually spoke the dialogue in a single unbroken POV take. It isn't perfect, the smoke has that CGI look to it, and Kling beats it on how good the materials look, but nothing else in the test came close on doing what the prompt actually said. On top of that, it looks the most cinematic, which isn't always what your projects will need when you're making something stylized, but it's the only one that nailed that hyper-realistic look without making everything look plastic. So Seedance 2.5 does live up to the hype, and you know exactly which of the 3 to use depending on what you're making. And with Higgsfield, you can switch between all the best models under one subscription, so you always have access to everything you need without having to switch between multiple tools. If you want to start making your own AI videos using Seedance 2.5 today, use the link in the description and get started with Higgsfield. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.